Good evening, everybody. This is Peter O'Driscoll here, and I'm your host for the next few weeks for this very exciting course. And the course is essentially a course where we will be discussing how you apply and how you prepare yourself for two of the Project Management Institute certification examinations. The two certification examinations are the PMP, or the Project Management Professional, and the other is a Certified Associate in Project Management, otherwise known as CAPM, CAPM. And all the material that I've got here is based on the 5th edition PMBOK. So PMBOK is an acronym for the Project Management Body of Knowledge. Most of the time I'll be referring to it as PMBOK. So tonight, what I'm going to do first is, as a quick introduction to IT Masters and to the various courses that they run, I'm going to get Neil McCosh to say a few words. So Neil, are you ready to take over?
Yes, I am, Peter. Hello, everyone. I'll just wait till Peter brings up the screen.
Okay. So sorry, just first bear with me for a second. Now, so you have the first slide. It takes a few seconds for the slides to actually appear.
That's fine.
Is that okay, Neil?
Thank you, Peter, and welcome to everyone. My name's Neil McCosh. I work with Charles Sturt University, and I also work with IT Masters. IT Masters, we market a lot of postgraduate programs for Charles Sturt University, hence why we run a lot of our free short courses to show people how our postgraduate programs work, and a sample of what quality and how you would view slides and live sessions in our courses. This subject that Peter's talking about is based on our MGI 514 subject, which is a core subject on our Master of Project Management, which is made up of 12 subjects there. You have some core electives and industry electives, but MGI 514, which is this course about project management leadership, or PMI, PMP, and ACP certifications, is a core subject. It's also an elective on our MBA computing course and an elective on our project management specialisation of the Master of Management course. If you go to our site, which is CSU's marketing area for this course, go to www.itmasters.edu.au, or you can email Jason Howarth there, or fill in a form on our page. You'll find many ways to contact us. Thank you, Peter. Just wait till the next slide comes up. So these are all distance education programs that you would do 1 or 2 subjects a session if you're working, and you'd usually do most of your study up to 10 hours per subject at night time or on the weekends. A little bit about CSU. We are the largest provider of distance education programs in Australia, and always have been. We're very good at delivering quality postgraduate programs by distance ed, so you don't lose anything as compared to people who do go to the campus. Okay, one more slide. In IT and postgraduate courses now, Charles Sturt again is the leader in that area, so we're doing something right. And if you'd like to talk to us, please do, about how distance education can make it a very rich learning environment to study courses and subjects such as this one now. I'm sure you'll enjoy the weeks with Peter. I wish you all the very best. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you very much. Okay, quickly just look at what we're going to cover over the next few weeks. This particular session is topic 1, 2 and 3. Topic 1 is there will be introductory discussions about the course, about applying for certification, and also as well as some of the project framework details. Some of it is important for the PMP certification, but not so important for the CAPM certification. Topic 2, it covers integration. It's one of the knowledge areas in PMBOK. Topic 3 is stakeholder management, which is also a knowledge area. And you'll find that for the next few weeks, every topic will be essentially a knowledge area in PMBOK. What is a knowledge area? I'll come to that shortly. So week 2 covers the scope and time aspects of the PMBOK. We move on to week 3, which covers cost, quality, human resources. And finally, in week 4, we cover communication, risk, procurement, and stakeholder management. Finally, you will be asked, if you wish, to sit an open book online test. This test, if you take the test and you pass the test, you will be awarded a certificate to indicate that you've attended the course and that you have attained a level of competency based on the ability to pass the exam. So today we are going to cover in the introduction what are the eligibility criteria for the exam, what is the exam structure. I'll move into project management framework, look at the process groups and knowledge areas, then move into the first of the knowledge areas, integration management, move on to stakeholder management. Throughout the course, the session, we'll be looking at sample questions, that the type of questions that you'll be getting in the exam. One of the things that you're going to find with preparing for a PMP exam is that you will need to get plenty of practice in answering questions and understand the format and the type of language that's used in these questions and the culture that's applied to these questions. You may be a very good project manager, but trying to sit an exam, a project management institute exam, without understanding the culture, the language, and the approach that PMBOK takes, you'll find that it's going to be quite difficult. I, at the very end, just cover the reading material and any exam preparation hints that we may be able to give you. Okay, first cab off the rank. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because we have a whole lot of material tonight. You may feel that I'm going through this very quickly. Please bear with me because the reason why I'm going through it quickly is the volume of material. The reason why I'm going through so much material is because I feel you need to know that this is important, and when you get a chance you can then follow up yourself and do some further study and get to know the ins and outs. So the two certifications that we look at is the CAPM and the PMP. So if we look at why would you want to do the Certified Associate in Project Management certification, or why would you want to get it? Well, it's for those people starting off a career in project management. It indicates that you have a commitment to project management, and it helps you to be able to tackle some of the larger projects in your workplace because you get to know and have the knowledge that will be necessary to undertake that work. The project management profession, on the other hand, demonstrates that you have experience and skills as a project manager, that you have a recognized level of competency and recognized by PMI, and it is internationally recognized. That is one of the great things about the PMP qualification. And of course, the CAPM qualification is the same. Just highlighting here in the little blue box at the bottom, the CAPM qualification is designed for those with little or no project experience. And on the other hand, the PMP certificate is really based on a combination of your exam and, more importantly, your experience. What do you need to have to be eligible to sit the CAPM examination with PMI? If you've got a secondary diploma, you will need 1,500 hours of professional experience on the project team. Or alternatively, you can have 23 contact hours of formal education. So it's an either or. It's quite possible you have both, but you decide when you're making an application to be considered eligible for the exam as to which you think is appropriate for you to use in your application. So it's either or. In terms of the PMP certification, if you've got a high school diploma, you're expected to show experience which stretches over 5 years or 60 months with unique non-overlapping professional project management experience, covering at least 7,500 hours. You're also expected to have 35 contact hours of formal education. If you happen to be lucky enough to have a bachelor's degree, the requirements or the eligibility requirements are reduced considerably. You're expected to have 3 years or 36 months of professional project management experience, at which at least 4,500 hours were spent on leading and directing projects. But you also need 35 contact hours. So your experience hours is dependent on your educational background. So contact hours, we talked about the contact hours that are required for the CAPM and for the PMP qualification. The contact hours are, you earn the contact hours by attending courses given by various types of trainers. And these are the list of trainers that would be acceptable in terms of providing you with the contact hours. What is not acceptable is if you are a member of PMI and you attend chapter meetings. Chapter meetings are not considered to be contact hours. And neither is self-directed learning, where you might be reading books, watching videos, etc., etc. So that's not considered as contact hours. Any contact hours, essentially face-to-face type, or you attend a formal course on the electronic formal courses. Each hour that you attend and have contact with an instructor, it's equal to one contact hour for every hour that you attend. So one of the things that people get confused with is the concept of contact hours and PDUs. PDUs stand for Professional Development Units. When you get qualified as a project management professional, you are expected to renew your certification every 3 years by having 60 professional development units. So there is a difference between professional development units and contact hours. Contact hours are associated with eligibility to sit the exam. PDUs are recognized to renew your certification. Okay, how do you apply for a CAPM? You decide whether you want to choose the option of 1,500 hours or whether you want to choose the 23 contact hours. I'm not going to go through all the details there, but you just need to record those and send the information into PMI. And all that information is readily available on the PMI website. So this little diagram here says what is a cycle when you make your application and the time and the days that pass by as you're going through all the different steps along the way. Applying for a project management professional, you have to document all your experience leading and directing projects. Make sure that every project you documented individually. Make sure that your experience covers all the process groups. If you don't know what process groups are, don't worry, we'll be covering that shortly. And you need to work out the hours that you have spent on each of these, and you do that beforehand. And the information again is on the PMI website. One of the things that you will find is the most difficult part of the whole process is recalling what you did over the last few years, documenting that and making sure that you have somebody to support and ensure that if you are audited in terms of your application, that you can support the application with all the appropriate materials and references. So periodically people will be audited to ensure that they have submitted an appropriate application. I'm just going to take a second or two to see if I have any questions that need to be answered. So just bear with me for a second. It appears that maybe Marty has answered most of the questions that need to be answered. So there are there are a number of questions here that need some attention. One of the questions here, do you outline difference between PMBOK 4 and PMBOK 5? And the answer to that is no. The 5th edition has been out now for over 2 years, almost 3 years. In fact, we're heading towards the 6th edition in the not too distant future. So PMBOK 4 is sufficiently far in the past not to have to worry about showing the difference between them. The next question that I've got here is why there are 2 topics for stakeholders. I'm not quite sure what we mean by 2 topics for stakeholders, but maybe I indicated something incorrectly there, but we will be covering stakeholders just as a one topic, and maybe one of my slides was incorrectly covered that particular session twice. Is there a history limit to the hours of experience? In other words, must be within the last 8 years to be eligible for PMP. I think it does say that on the one of the previous slides, that it does give you the time span. Just off the top of my head, I can't give you a definitive answer, but I think it's there. Does this webinar, is it considered as contact hours? Yes, the webinars, if you attend all the 4 webinars, you would be entitled to claim 4 hours of contact. I also believe, don't take it as gospel, but I believe that also by sitting the exam at the end, you're considered to have also gained a contact hour. The final question I have here that, oh no, yes, that needs an answer is, when you say formal education, should it be specifically in project management or in any discipline will do? No, it needs to be for the contact hours, the education needs to be specifically in terms of project management. Okay, I'll come back to some more questions in a short while, but let's move ahead. Again, this application cycle is all the different steps in the process for applying for your project management professional, and what happens after you have your credential, moving on to 3 years hence where you need 60 professional development units, etc. The exam structure for the CAPM, the Certified Associate Project Manager, you need, or there will be 150 random questions to be answered in 3 hours, of which 135 are actually scored and 15 are not scored. Now that seems a bit peculiar, doesn't it? Well, the reason why you have unscored questions is because PMI likes to test out to see how students answer these questions, and if they everything is answered in a satisfactory manner, they would then be incorporated into future exams and be marked accordingly. You have the ability to be able to go back over your questions and revisit them again. So if you don't want to answer them now, you can go back, or if you feel that you'd like to mark them because you're a little bit unsure. For the CAPM, your exam is focused on 11 chapters, chapters 3 to 13 of PMBOK. So computer-based testing is a standard approach. So you will attend a computer-based testing venue. However, there are some places where that facility is not available, and a paper-based test would be the appropriate way to sit the exam. These are the various percentages against the different chapters in PMBOK. Moving on to the PMP exam, 200 random questions in 4 hours, of which 175 are scored and 25 are not scored. Again, the same thing, able to review your questions, and the overall exam curriculum covers the 5 process groups, 10 knowledge areas, and the code of ethics and professional conduct. So there will be a change to the PMP exam in November. So any of you thinking doing the exam maybe should do it before November. But I think after November, there's not going to be major changes. It's just some changes to some of the tasks that are listed in that people need to focus on, and therefore questions will be asked that have probably not dealt with those particular areas of PMBOK. The exam structure for the PMP, these are the various process groups, and these are the various percentages of items on the test, and you'll see 175 scored and 25 not scored. So that's the eligibility for the exams and the exam structure. So let's now move into the real material, the material that you're going to have to study yourself, because what I'm going to be doing is giving you a very high-level overview, and I'm going to try and cover everything that will be relevant, but for you to remember, to understand, and to get to the level of detail that you need to do, you're going to have to do a lot of self-study. And I recommend for every week which chapters you need to read, and I've indicated other reading material you can use other than PMBOK. So let's move along here. What is a project? PMBOK describes a project as a temporary endeavour undertaken to create a unique product, service or result. That's a very important definition. There are a lot of other definitions out there by different authors to indicate what they consider to be a project. But essentially, the important thing about this is that it is a temporary. Now, what does the word temporary mean? Does it mean it's a very short-lived? Not necessarily the case. There's a satellite heading for Pluto that was launched 9.5 years ago. Could we say the project is complete? Maybe it was complete once the satellite was launched, and that we're now in operational mode. But really, at the end of the day, the word temporary does not try to bring it into a short time span. It can be a short time span or it can be a long time span. The important thing that it is a finite duration. The work happens only once to create a unique product. It has a clear beginning and end, and it's intended to, it's not necessarily a product, it can be a service or result. Project management, as a follow-on from that, is the application of knowledge, tools and techniques to project activities in order to meet project requirements. So that's what a project manager does. Applies knowledge, tools and techniques to project activities to ensure that we meet project requirements. And we do that in terms of trying to balance the conflict between time, scope, time, cost, quality. We also have to consider stakeholders with different needs, and we have identified needs, which are things that we can actually identify, and unidentified needs where people have expectations and sometimes we don't understand what those expectations are. And it's those expectations that are perceptions that people have, and they can be quite stressful, I suppose, when we discovered people's expectations far too late. So it's a project manager form, prescriptive and scalable approach applied to define piece of work. There are two other terms here that we need to discuss. One is portfolios and the other is programs. What is a portfolio? It's like an investment portfolio. You decide that you want to you have some money to invest and you want to put it into various shares, and you will spread your money across different types of shares. You might put them into mining industry, you might put them into IT, you might put them into food, pharmaceutical, etc. So you try to balance your shares into different industries, and that's a portfolio of shares. The same thing happens with projects and programs. We bring them together in an organization and we try to balance them off, and we try to decide which projects we should be running and which projects we shouldn't be running. Where does the money go? Ensuring that we align our projects to our strategy. And that's essentially what somebody who's managing the portfolio of projects does. It ensures that we follow the strategic business objectives, and a portfolio will include a number of programs and projects. Programs programs are essentially a collection of projects that are interconnected. So you have a program that will actually achieve one end result, but you need various projects to undertake that. So it's a group of related projects for achieving a large outcome. For example, it might be toll road program, which includes building the roads, building tolling systems, set up support teams, and many other. So each one of those could be considered as a separate project, all within the one program. So you have to have different skills to manage programs, and a lot of these skills are similar to project management skills. Moving on to the next slide, which is the Project Management Office. PMO is the term, the acronym often used. And PMBOK says it is a management structure that standardizes the project-related governance processes and facilities and facilitates the sharing of resources, methodologies, tools, and techniques. So essentially, it's an office within an organization that focuses on looking after project management. It's usually, you'll find one in organizations that have a large involvement in projects. They can have various functions. It can be to support the project managers in the organization. It can even help to manage some of the aspects of projects, maybe in terms of doing health checks, making sure that everything is running sufficiently well. So moving along to the first opportunity to ask a question. And these are the type of questions that you're going to be asked in your exam. There'll be multiple choice questions, and you'll see different types of formats for these questions. So what I'm going to do is to ask you to have a quick look at this question. I have a poll that I'm going to ask you to respond to in terms of what do you think the answer is. Sorry, I've jumped ahead a little bit. So let's go back to the first question. The first question is a project is, and these are the different potential answers. So if I ask you to respond to this, just tell me what you think is the appropriate answer. So I'll give you a few seconds to answer. You can see the various, what's happening is that we can see various percentages of people. So we have a large group of people who say that answer is D, and those people who have answered D are correct. It is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product and a unique product, service, or result. If we move along to the next question, and the next question is a primary function of a project management office, the PMO, is to support project managers in a variety. I think I just need to hide my poll before I can go on to the next question. So the question is, a primary function of a project management office, the PMO, is to support project managers in a variety of ways that may include all of the following except. So if you like to quickly have a look at that and tell us what your answer is, I will then again give you what is the correct answer. So before I continue, just notice that word except. There are quite a few questions that you will be asked, and if you don't read this correctly, you could very easily discover that the word except has been overlooked, and you try to pick what is considered to be the most correct answer. And that there may be 2 or 3 correct answers, but what PMP or PMI is looking for is the most correct answer. But in this case, it's saying everything is correct except. So the what we're saying here is which is the one that is not correct. So project management office delivers specific project. The answer is A. A is an incorrect. So the project management office does not deliver specific project objectives and doesn't control assigned project resources. That's essentially the job of the project manager. So again, I'll just show you the percentages. Very few of you actually managed to pick that out, and I think it's probably because the word except was not understood or accepted, was not recognized. Okay, so let's move along and move on to the next question. The next question is...
Sorry, Peter, I think we've accidentally skipped one of the questions.
Previous. There are
So
only
the last poll that we just answered was for started with a program.
Yes,
so we just
correct.
need to make sure.
Yeah. So we're moving on to the next question, which is the a program. Oh, okay. Sorry, apologies. And I suggested that most of you had got the answer wrong, when most of you got the answer right. So please forgive me for not understanding and realizing that we had skipped a slide. So okay, the one that we skipped was the one where we have the word except in bold print and the project management office, and I think I've given you the answer to that one. But very quickly, I'll just see what is okay. No, we've looked at that, and you know what the answer to that one is. So in the interest of speed, let's move ahead, and you know what a program is. Okay, next, moving on from those questions, we'll ask a few more later on. A very important aspect of the project manager's life is what type of organization the project manager is going to be working in. And the type of organization the project manager is going to be working in has a bearing on their ability to manage a project and gives them power and authority to do the work that they need to do to be effective. So the different types of organizational structures in PMBOK are firstly a functional organization. Secondly is a projectized organization, and the third type is what's called a matrixized or matrix organization. Very quickly run through those. A functional organization runs projects. When we talk about functions, we talk about the areas in an organization that are have certain disciplines, like you got the purchasing department, you got the human resource department, you got the finance department. All these are various departments or functions in an organization. Now, a functional organization running projects will not have, essentially, won't have any project managers. They'll run projects within the function themselves. They might borrow some staff from other functions. You see the grey area. So the finance manager might want some application built for some reporting system, and we'll get somebody in his staff, and he will probably be the functional manager. He or she would be essentially the project manager for the duration of the project. So therefore, there isn't any real project management skills. The work is performed wholly within the project or the functional department, and now and again they might borrow from other departments to help with the project. The other extreme is a projectized organization, and the projectized organization is where you actually have project managers who are solely responsible for a project. They may be co-located on a building site somewhere, so they have complete control over what's happening in their project. And the diagram we've got here, you see 3 different project managers, probably often 3 different building sites, and they're reporting the chief executive. Those organizations, you may also have other things, like you might have human resources department, finance department, etc. But the idea here is this is where project managers have most of the power and authority to do things. Looking at the matrix organization, they actually broken up into 3 different components. You've got a weak matrix, you've got a balanced matrix, and a strong. Weak, balanced, and strong have to do with where the project manager fits in. Weak matrix, really there isn't a project manager involved. It's usually somebody who has some basic information in projects, and they might be a coordinator or an expediter. They're working within the functional team, and therefore the skills and the ability to manage projects is fairly limited. The functional manager, again, is the person who will have most of the say in what's happening. It goes probably across departments, so they really don't have any power in terms of being able to determine what resources and what people need to do. The balance matrix is where you've got a project manager. They are obviously have the relatively good expertise, but they're still working under a functional manager. And finally, we've got the strong matrix, where we actually have a project manager working within a project management team, and they're seconded to try and get a project underway, and they will borrow staff from various functional managers to get the project to ensure that the project is delivered. So they're all different types of organizations, and they are, they crop up and they are important in terms of exams from a PMBOK point of view. Just quickly before I move along, what I might do is just see if there are other questions that I'm expected to answer that are outstanding. We have a lot of communication going backwards and forwards. I think I'm okay with all the questions. So moving along, some of the key project drivers, stakeholders, which we'll be covering later on, but essentially stakeholders really have a big influence on your projects. And the stakeholders are a very wide-ranging group, various groups of people or organizations. The project manager should really identify those stakeholders very quickly because of the effect the stakeholders can have on your project, positive or negative. Another thing that's important is the project governance framework. What type of framework are you working within? What does your organization support good project management practices? Does it have methodology? Are there structures, process, decision-making models in place that helps the project manager to run the project effectively? One of the things you're going to see as we go through all the different knowledge areas and the various processes are that there will be these two inputs that will be consistent. You'll find that they are very important in all processes within the project management cycle. The first one is enterprise environmental factors. And what that is that there are so many factors that affect a project that are outside the bubble of the project itself. It could be the culture of the organization you're working in, their process, their infrastructure. It could be the government outside the organization completely. It could be the government standards and regulations. It could be the marketplace. It could be established skill sets, communication channels. All these things could affect the way you're able to run your project. They're essentially outside the project, but they have an influence on the project. The other one is the organizational process assets. And these are things that the company actually has within the organization. They're assets that can be used, and sometimes they have to be used. It could be a project or a quality management system that the project has to comply with. It could be a knowledge base. It could be information that's available to you to utilize and bring into your project. It could be systems that are available to you as a project manager to use to help you with your project. Okay, moving on to the next concept is a life cycle. There are two life cycles that need special attention here. One is a product life cycle and the other is a project life cycle. The project life cycle, you will find more than likely will fall within the product life cycle. The product life cycle starts off with the idea that we need to implement a change of some description to meet our strategic goals. And what do we need to do that? We want to build something. What do we need to build? So your ideas start to formulate, and then you start looking at the feasibility and the viability of doing all that. And these are all long before you actually get to the project stage. But once you've decided that, yes, it's a feasible proposition, let's go ahead with it, you then start the project. The project then delivers your product, and it goes into operation mode. And it gets produced and gets sold out in the marketplace there for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And eventually somebody says, we don't need that product anymore. We need to retire it and put it to bed. So all that's from the start to the finish is a product life cycle. And as I mentioned, within that you have the actual implementation, the building, the development of the product itself, and that's the project life cycle. And the definition here is the project life cycle is a series of phases that a project passes through from its initiation to its closure. Okay, the project life cycle. PMBOK suggests that there are generic life cycle phases. The first one is starting up the project, organizing, preparing, carrying out the project work, and closing the project. And this is displayed here in a diagram, and some of the deliverables from project management will be, and from the technical processes are indicated here at the bottom of the diagram. Sometimes we use this terminology when we're talking to senior management who are not too familiar with the language of project management. So it's a good way to indicate the phases of the project by just referring to these general terms. So projects can be divided into any number of phases. For example, what I like to use is a fairly straightforward example of your building 7 apartment blocks. The first apartment block may be your first phase. The second apartment block might be your second phase. When you finish your second apartment block, you move on to the next one. So each one becomes a separate phase, almost as if there's a separate mini project. But your project overall is to build 7 apartment blocks. So you can see the logic of building or splitting them up into different phases. There are also maybe your 7 apartment blocks. You might say, no, what we're going to do is we're going to lay the foundations for each of these apartment blocks at the same time. We're going to then build the structure for each of those. We're going to put in the plumbing for each of those. So you're getting the same skills on the site at the same time. So they could be your phases. So it's really up to the project manager to decide what are the appropriate phases. And the definition of phases are a collection of logically related project activities that culminate in the completion of one or more deliverables, and used when the nature of the work to be performed is unique to a portion of the project, and are typically linked to the development of a specific major deliverable, like our 7 apartment blocks. Okay, some more text here may emphasize process from a particular project management process group, but it's likely that most of all the processes will be executed in some form in each phase. We'll look at that in a couple of seconds, and this is where we see all the project management process groups being performed under the installation of a telecommunication network, which is just a straightforward one-phase project. Here we've got a 3-phase project, which is to do with the hazardous cleanup. You have facility decommissioning, waste removal, cleanup, and landscaping. For each of those phases, you go through the whole cycle of project management process groups, and all the processes need to be applied to each phase. Here you've got overlapping. So you've got building a new factory where your design phase is still going ahead while you're doing some of the construction work. So these are 2 phases, but this is the project management work that goes on, and these are all the project management process groups. There's a term called progressive elaboration, and progressive elaboration is as you get further into the project, you begin to understand a little bit more about the project, and it's all about continuously improving and detailing a plan as more detail becomes available. Progressive elaboration can be often used in or referred to as rolling wave planning. As you're moving along through your project, you're planning the next stage or the next phase, and as you get more and more information, you're in a better position to come up with a more detailed plan. Okay, in BIMBOK we talk about different delivery approaches. One is predictive, and the predictive delivery approach is often referred to as waterfall, where you do one thing and then you do the next thing, which is very common in something like engineering or construction, where you've been doing this type of work for many years, if not decades. Everything is very predictive. You can actually predict exactly what's going to happen. You have iterative and incremental type approach, where iterative means that you go over things over and over again until you know that you've got the right approach. So you might do prototyping, so that the customer looks and says, no, that's not what I want. I'd like the colors to be changed, and maybe you should have some flashing lights up there on my website. And then as soon as you've convinced the customer this is the right way to go, you move ahead. Incremental means that you deliver things. The first web page goes up and it gets delivered to the public, and then maybe a week later you have the second web page. So you deliver the project in incremental modules. Adaptive life cycle is you adapt as you're going through your project and recognize that change is inevitable. Customers will change their minds as they're going through the project, and you have to be willing to adapt. And the agile approach is the most widely used approach towards the adaptive life cycle. Quickly again, look at some of these questions. The project manager has the greatest level of independence and authority in which type of organization? So let me launch this thing on the screen so that you have an opportunity to answer. Greatest level of authority, independence. So it's a very interesting, I'm looking at the percentage going up and down. So what I might do is close that and then share the results with you. And the answer to this particular question is it's a projectized. The projectized organization is that structure, organization structure, which the project manager virtually has complete control over the project. Okay, moving along to the next question. All of the following statements about the level of authority of a project manager are true except. Again, we've got this word except, so we have to make sure that we understand that okay, I launch the poll and get you maybe to answer the question. Again, the answer there is all the following statements except the level of authority of the project are true except. You're dead right. So answer D is correct. Just make sure that's in a strong matrix or authority of the project manager is limited. It's okay. Let me actually I need to read these very quickly again to make sure I got the right answer. A functional organization, the project manager has little or no authority, which is correct. In weak matrices, the project manager role is more that of a coordinator or expert editor. That's true. The balanced matrix organization does not provide the project manager with the full authority over the project and the project funding, and that's true. So D would be the correct answer. It is the authority of the project manager is not limited. In the strong matrix, it is quite strong. Okay, and then another question, which is all the following statements except about project management. I'll read that again. All the following statements about the project life cycle and the product life cycle are true except. So again, gives you an opportunity.
Sorry, Peter, perhaps we could leave the answers up for a little bit longer so that people have time to read them.
Okay, well what I've got actually, Margie, I've got the answers at the end of the slides. So when we finish the session, if people want to revisit these questions again, they can go back to the answers at the end of the slides. So very quickly again, all the following statements about the project lifecycle and the product lifecycle are true except in the project predictive lifecycle, the project and the time and cost required to deliver that scope are determined as early in the project lifecycle as practically possible. That's true. In the project iterative and incremental lifecycle, project phases intentionally repeat one or more product activities as the project team's understanding of the product increases. That is correct. The product lifecycle is a series of phases that represent the evolution of a product from conception through delivery, growth, and that would be true. And the product lifecycle is contained within the predictive project lifecycle. No, that's not true. So D is the correct answer there. It's the only wrong answer. So those who answer D would be correct. And I'll just show you the end result of that particular poll. And while that's coming up, I'll just see if there's any questions that I need to answer. Okay, I don't have any, well there is one here that needs special attention. Okay, there's actually two questions that need special. Are these questions MCQs or a mix of also short answer questions? Not quite sure what we mean by MCQs, are a mix of also
multiple choice questions.
Sorry, multiple choice questions. Sorry, yeah. All PMBOK questions, all PMI questions, irrespective of which of the certification, are based exactly on the same type of format, where you have multiple choice. You have 4 options, and you have to pick the most correct. Will these topics be covered in detail later stage of the course? Or are they left for self-study? They're left for self-study. As you can see, I'm trying to get through this as quickly as possible. The amount of material that I've got here is well in excess of the amount of time that we could spend on it. And there are courses, a 6-day course that you can attend that covers all this in a lot more detail. Okay, let's move along and move on to the next topic, which is process groups and knowledge areas. This is an important part of this course because you really need to understand the concepts that we cover here because they will be used throughout the rest of the course. What is a process? A very important part to understand what a process is, because essentially PMBOK is all related to process and process management. So a process essentially is inputs, activities, and outputs. So you make a slice of toast in the morning. What's the input? The input is a slice of toast, goes into the toaster. The toaster does toast the bread, and the output is toasted bread. So the inputs, raw bread or uncooked bread. and the output is a toast. So the process is the actual toasting of the bread. It's as simple as that. So at the end of the day, we need to understand what a process actually is, and the definition that PMBOK says it's a set of interrelated actions and activities performed to create a specific product, service, or result. The process is characterized by its inputs, the tools and techniques that can be applied, and the resulting outputs. Tools and techniques are the activities that we're undertaking. How do we best do those activities? And PMBOK has a plenty of tools and techniques that it suggests that you use to undertake the work. Throughout projects, we have two types of processes. Within PMBOK, there are 47 different processes. They all relate to project management. But depending on what industry you're in, you will have your own processes to do the work. For example, you're in construction industry, you will be doing things like laying foundations, building the structures, putting in plumbing, piping, all this sort of thing. So very quickly, just look at examples of what might be the processes that are involved from a technical point of view in software development. You got analysis, you got design, build, transition, post-implementation. These might be all sub-processes associated with the technical aspect of the project. But underneath here, you've got the project management, which incorporates all the 47 different processes that are being undertaken as you're going through the project, the software delivery. If we look at another example here, construction, design and engineering, procurement, construction, startup for occupancy, and post-implementation. You may have processes and sub-processes here, and that's specific to construction industry. Down at the bottom here, you have the actual project management. And the project management is the same project management that we have on the previous slides, the 47 different processes. So 47 project management processes distributed across what's called 5 process groups and 10 knowledge areas. So one process will find itself in one of these process groups and will also find itself in one of these knowledge areas. The process groups include initiation, starting the project off, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. And the knowledge areas are all the different knowledge areas we're going to be covering for most of the rest of the course. There's a description here of what the different knowledge areas are. I'm not going to cover those. I'm just going to move along. Now this is an extremely important slide that can be found on page 61 of PMBOK. Across the top of the page, you've got the different process groups, which I've just discussed: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and closing. Down on the side here, we've got integration management, scope management, time management, cost management. These are all the different areas knowledge areas we're going to cover. Notice that all the different processes within here, within each of those. So these are the 47 different processes. So when you're starting off a project, the first thing you do is you need to develop a project charter and you identify stakeholders. Then you move into planning and you start doing all this. You move into execution, you do all this. So one of the things that if you are seriously considering doing your PMP or CAPM exam, I would suggest that you try and be able to reproduce that when you go into an exam. You might think this is a daunting task. However, as you get to know PMBOK fairly well, it'll become quite easy to recognize all the different steps that need to be done under the different knowledge areas and under the different process groups. Okay. Sorry, just to move on. I'm going to actually give these questions a miss because we're now have very little time left to finish off. But as I said, you can answer these questions in your own time, and the correct answers are to be found at the back of the slide pack. So let's look at integration management, the first of our knowledge areas. Now, integration management essentially is really the bread and butter of the project manager. It's most of the work is integrating all the other knowledge areas and all the other work that's undertaken within the project. So it's all about identifying, defining, combining, unifying, and coordinating various processes and activities. And when you've got conflicting aspects to different processes, for example, you want to reduce your time, and you want to or maybe increase the schedule, that probably means that you have to increase your resources. It probably means you have to increase your costs, and you have to balance all these things up. So integration is all about trying to ensure that you make sure that all the other processes are aligned with each other. Looking across the top of the page, and you're going to see this in every one of the knowledge areas, is the process groups, initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, control, and closing, and the actual knowledge area that we're looking at. And these are the individual processes that are associated with this knowledge area. Okay, first process is develop the project charter, and that really formally authorizes the project and is issued by the sponsor. The next process is develop a project management plan, a very important document. Discuss each one of these in a little bit more detail in a minute. The next process is direct and manage project work as you're up and running with the project. You need to monitor and control project work right throughout from the very start to the finish. And you perform integrated change control whenever you want to make changes to your original scope. And then finally you end up closing the project. These are all different processes the project manager has got to focus on under the guise of integration management. Developing a project charter. Essentially a charter is what the project manager is given, which authorizes the project manager to start the project. It shows the existence of the project and gives power to the project manager, and it's usually the sponsor who issues the charter. It's usually an internal agreement, and what's included in there is really up to the organization. But these are all the bits and pieces of information and documentation that's used to create the charter, so that you understand where the project is heading, what is the scope of the project. And don't forget, you've got the environmental factors and organizational process as we discussed before. These are the various tools and techniques that we put together to create the charter, and out comes the other end is the charter itself. The plan, which is part and parcel of planning, in fact, it culminates after you need to plan how you're going to tackle all your planning, and then the culmination of all the planning is a collection of all the baselines, which essentially says what is the scope of the project, what's the cost, what's the schedule, and how are we going to manage all these things as we go through the rest of the project. What are the inputs to this particular process? You've got the preliminary project scope, you've got all the project management process that you've done work, things like time, costs, risk, etc. You've got our two friends at the bottom here. Tools and techniques, maybe a methodology the organization has, a project management information system. We depend on expert judgment to help us to get to the output, which is the project management plan. So a methodology is a part and parcel of the way that you manage your project as a whole, and the project management plan can suggest what methodology should be used. Moving on to the next process, which is as you're up and running with the project, you direct and manage the project work. So essentially you're following what's already set out in the project management plan. And the first input is the project management plan. And as you're going through the project, you'll have corrective actions that need to be taken, preventative action, change requests, defect repairs, etc. You use your methodology to help you to understand how you direct and manage the work, use your information system, and these are all the outputs from your direct and managed project work. Monitor and control project work. That is what you're monitoring is one aspect and controlling is the other. Monitoring is you're measuring performance. What's actually happening? Are we doing well? Are we working to plan? If we're not working to plan, what corrective action? We need to control things. So monitoring is checking, and control is doing something about it. So you're taking corrective action. Again, we've got the inputs included here. Tools and techniques that we need to apply to monitor and control, and the outputs include things like recommended corrective action, preventative action, forecasting where we're heading, etc., etc. Moving along to perform integrated change control. From the moment that your project plan is in place and signed off, it is more than likely those plans are going to change. So change should always be documented, and no change should be undertaken to scope, time, cost, etc. without having a change request. So no matter how small the change is, it should go through integrated change control for approval. So the project manager's role is to ensure that they manage the change and they get appropriate authorization to make any changes that are required. Integrated change control, these are all the inputs. The tools and techniques and the outputs include approved change requests, rejected change requests, updating your project management plan, etc. The project management plan, by the way, is a living document because it should reflect what is the plan at any one moment in time. Close your project and phase. When you get to the end of the project or the end of the phase, you need to finalize a whole lot of things you need to release people who are working on the project. You need to archive all your materials. You need to make sure you get the sign off for everything else. And these are all the inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. The questions, again, I'm going to leave to you. We are at 8 o'clock, but I will continue on the last few slides and run through them very quickly. I apologize for the fact that I'm going through this very quickly, but hopefully you can understand that really what I'm trying to do is to give you an understanding of what you really need to study before you can actually consider seriously to sit the project management exams. So stakeholder management is all about building effective relationships with identified stakeholders. It's a very key contributor to project success. It is the new knowledge area introduced in PMP 5. It was part of communication management because really communication and stakeholder management, we need to interact and relate to each other. Communication is the way we do that. What are the processes involved? These are the processes here. We look at those in a little bit more detail. Stakeholder management includes identifying the stakeholders at the very start. It's the second process in the in PMBOK. We need to understand and identify all those people who are impacted or can have an impact on the project. They may perceive that they have an impact, so we really need to understand that anybody who thinks they're going to be affected by the project has to be recorded in a stakeholder register. We need to manage how we plan how we're going to manage our stakeholders. Then we go ahead and we engage with the stakeholders and we control those engagements. So the first process identifies stakeholders, and that includes individuals, groups, organizations, anybody out there or any group out there that may be affected or perceived to be affected by the project. They can be internal to the organization or external. It could be a community group, it could be the government, or it could be just one of your colleagues in another department. You need to record all your known stakeholders in the stakeholder register, and this is some of the types of information you might include in the stakeholder register. You need to continuously identify these throughout the project because new stakeholders will crop up. Some will become more interested, some will become less interested. You need to do an analysis of your stakeholders, and that can be done quantitatively and qualitatively. Having identified all the potential, we determine their impact on the project. We assess how the stakeholders react in a given situation, and we classify stakeholders in different ways. One of these is using a power interest grid. The various types of ways we can identify stakeholders by their power, their interest, their influence, their impact, their urgency, legitimacy, etc. These are all ways of identifying and recognizing stakeholders and prioritizing them. So this is an example of a power interest grid. The power is on the left-hand column here, and the interest is on the bottom of your graph or of your chart. All the letters of the alphabet here represent individual stakeholders, and you put them into the particular box that you feel is appropriate. So let's say stakeholder B here needs to be managed closely because they've got a lot of power and they have a lot of interest in your project. Whereas down here, stakeholder G hasn't got very much power and they don't really have very much interest in your particular project. So you will identify, and this is a quick way to be able to determine how you're going to treat and manage those particular stakeholders. Plan stakeholder management, then having identified them, you then plan how you're going to, the strategies that you're going to adopt and apply to managing and engaging those stakeholders. So we have analytical techniques that we can show the gap between where the stakeholders stand at the moment and where we want to bring them to as we're going through the project. The output from this particular process is a stakeholder management plan, which describes how you engage your stakeholders, particularly with how you're going to communicate with them, and who sees this management plan. It may be that there's some confidential information in there that you wouldn't like individual stakeholders to see because of your particular view of how they could affect your project. The stakeholder engagement assessment matrix. These are the stakeholders, an example of some stakeholders, what is their current position, they're unaware, they're resistant, etc. Where do you want them to be when you're halfway or quarter way through your project? Manage your stakeholder engagement is the next process. As you're going through the project, you follow the plan. You have to decide how you're going to engage these stakeholders. So you communicate and work with them, you manage their expectations, address any potential concerns, clarify and resolve issues, and you use agreed communication methods, interpersonal skills, all these other skills that are appropriate. Moving along to control stakeholder engagement, which involves making sure that you monitor how things are going with the stakeholders. You might even ask stakeholders how they're feeling about the project. Are they getting enough information? We adjust and maybe change the approach that we're taking if we're not satisfying the stakeholders. We capture, store and distribute information using information management system about all aspects of the project. And we have an issue log, which is a key tool to us understanding how to control the stakeholders. We've got the sample questions here, which I'll skip over, and then finally the study material. We've discussed the project management body of knowledge, which is an essential part of your course. There are a range of certification preparation resources, and this one here is a lessons learned. How to prepare and undertake, how to approach your preparation for the exam. Very good source of information. These are all a set of textbooks that you can maybe select 1, 2, 3. The idea of just using the project management body of knowledge, or PMBOK, on its own probably is not a good thing. Most of these books are much easier to read and they get you to focus on certain things. This one here, the reason why I've listed it here, although it's based on the 4th edition of PMBOK, it only costs about $9 or even $6, $7, $8 US. The difference between edition 4 and edition 5 is not great, and that's what I call value for money. Sample questions. There's a link here for a colleague of mine, Sean Whittaker, who has his own set of exam questions. This week revision. What do you need to do? Read chapter 1 to 3 of PMBOK, and also chapter 4, which is integration management, and chapter 13, which is stakeholder management. There's complementary textbooks and practice doing exam questions. So these are all the things that you need to look at, and internet material from PMP exam lessons learned by this chap here, Edward Chung. So he has a lot of good information as well. So we've gone over time by 8 minutes. So thank you all very much. It looks as if most of you who signed into the webinar are still here, which is really good. Apologies for going through things so quickly, but I hope that you can understand the reason why I've done that. Maybe over the coming weeks we mightn't be as rushed because we've covered so much ground tonight. So I wish you all good night. Maybe just before I go, I'll check to see if there are any questions that really should require my attention before we go. I don't see anything that has a little red flag to say, please. Oh, I do see some. Are these, I've answered that one. Will these topics have answered that? What about the project sponsors? What is the difference between project sponsor and project stakeholder? It's a good question. A sponsor is a stakeholder. There are numerous stakeholders, but the sponsor is the primary stakeholder. They're the ones, the customer, the person who wants the project done, the person who's going to look to see if the benefits have been derived from the project long after the project manager has left. So stakeholders, though, are a much wider group of people, and the sponsor is one of those stakeholders. I think that's about it. There are other questions there that have been asked, but these are the really important ones that I need to respond to, because Margie has highlighted they need to be responded to immediately.
I'm just letting anyone know who hasn't had their questions answered that we'll be going through them, and we will answer the rest in the forums.
Thank you, Margie.
There were quite a few today, so.
Okay. Okay, good night and thank you all.